joining us now to go more in depth on the concept of how we face life post 9/11 and now, gosh, almost a decade and a half after that horrible day. We call on Frank Wuco, former naval intelligence officer, CEO and founder of Red Mind Solutions. He is Skyping in today from Tampa. And Frank, we very much appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, JD.
Frank, how do we strike a balance between being vigilant but not being in a panic, and then to see the body politic become complacent? Given what's going on in the world, you don't want panic, but people have to stay aware of what's happening. What should folks keep in mind?
Well, JD, one thing is you don't strike a balance when it comes to the safety and security of the American people. Emotional content is one thing. People's feelings and sensitivities towards, who they are, where they're from, what they believe. Those are all things that are protected and enshrined in our Constitution. You don't mix that with the safety and security of the American people, which has to be taken 150% seriously 24/7. So I think there's this general confusion among people these days as to, what do we do first? What's the natural order of things? So natural order of things is safety and security of the American people, or how we feel. So, I think if we take care of things in the right order, then everything will just sort of sort itself out. But safety and security first.
All right, Frank, we have that video playing right now on the screen of the American flags that were bleached apparently above the Brooklyn Bridge here. And I want to get your take on all this, because as we've seen in the electronic realm, sometimes hackers will send a message to say, look, you guys look at the vulnerabilities in this particular area. But what kind of message, whoever is responsible for this, do you think they were trying to send?
This one is really baffling. I mean, there's no telling whether these were some adrenaline junkie rock climbers. Apparently the guys had experience with climbing. Not sure how the police and security forces know that, unless there was some gear left behind, or if it's something more serious and nefarious. I mean, if you put it within those two categories, one, it's either some kind of prank or political statement, or two, it's a sign of perhaps something more serious to come. But we are really in one of these situations now. This is kind of baffling. Unlike the shoot down of the Malaysian airliner, you don't have to be a trained investigator or intelligence professional to know exactly what happened there. This one's a little bit different. It's gonna take a couple days to sort this out. In the meantime, I think you can expect the NYPD and the counterterrorism task force there.
Yeah, and because that has been so well publicized. The NYPD and their special efforts to deal with counterterrorism and security issues of this sort. We've seen helicopters and police boats constantly patrolling the Hudson River, the East River there in Manhattan. So, I mean, the question is, and it seems like a very obvious and maybe a dumb question, but how does this happen in New York of all places?
It is, it just goes to show you that when we're feeling the most secure, that's sometimes when we have a tendency to become the most relaxed. And it's exactly the state that our patient enemies pine for. So they have all the time in the world on their hands. They control the schedule. We have to control the environment.
Frank, you were careful to make a distinction between popular opinion and security necessities on the part of security professionals. And of course, given your background in naval intelligence, obviously you're a very security-minded individual there at Red Mind Solutions. But in terms of the mindset of the body politic, is it fair to say that perhaps Americans have just simply donned the mindset of, quote, terror fatigue?
In some ways, JD, I think that's the case. It's, there are lots of layers to the human psyche in a situation like this. One is escapism. I mean, people simply, they want to escape from, concerns of this type. There's, on the other hand, there's an increased amount of vigilance just on the conscience of American people. I mean, unlike pre-9/11 days, nowadays, really, if somebody sees something that doesn't look right, doesn't seem right, they will generally report it to someone. That's unprecedented in sort of the post-World War II state of this country. But another thing is, the American people in some ways are, by and large, very switched off. I'll guarantee you that more people know about the current state of Honey Boo Boo and her mother than they do about the state of the American flags flying over, prominent bridges in New York City.
Wow, Frank, on that note, that's somewhat ominous. We're going to have you back for this discussion, hopefully not following an event, but you make a lot of good points. Frank Wuco, former Naval Intelligence Officer and the CEO and founder of Red Mine Solutions. We'll keep you top of mind and talk to you again in the not-too-distant future. Thanks so much.
Thank you, JD.
So what about it? Are we experiencing terror fatigue as a country? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. And our program will continue after this.